Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate means the people in Lakota, brought to you by Skoll Construction.
Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guests tonight is Mr. Mark Anderson and Mr. LeMoine Lapointe of the Barbara Schneider Foundation, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Thank you both for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you.
Mark, or Mr. Anderson, could you tell us a little bit about the foundation, or excuse me, the Barbara Schneider Foundation and the history and the founding of that organization?
Yeah. First, thanks for having us here on your program.
Thank you.
June 12th, 2000, Barbara was in her apartment. She was in a mental health crisis. She's a 50-year-old lady with, she had 2 master's degrees. She was a small person, about 100 pounds, 5 feet tall, and she had a radio in the window. She was in crisis. She was very upset, and a neighbor called the noise complaint because of the radio. Police officers were dispatched. They went up to the door, and she came to the door. She saw them, and she had a knife. She was stabbing at the inside of the door, and they emptied 2 cans of pepper gas between the door and the door jamb. She retreated back in the bedroom. They went in the apartment. They called backup. They had 5 police officers in a little 1-bedroom apartment. And 2 officers, 1 officer was going to go in and restrain her. Because she had an edged weapon, a deadly weapon, was within 20 feet of them, 2 of them had their guns out when he went in to restrain her. And he opened the door. She came out at him with the knife. And it ended tragically with her losing her life. She had a mural on the wall about the Satan Squad. She was a Jewish lady. The Satan Squad was the Nazi SS in her mind. She was calling these officers the Nazi SS. She was calling them the Satan Squad. They didn't understand what she was talking about. Instead of de-escalating that situation, they pushed her into the bedroom. So she was already afraid when they came to she didn't know why they were there. It was because of the radio. She didn't know. But she was thinking about her own mortality because she'd just gotten a cancer diagnosis. The cancer had come back. Her mom died of the same cancer. So she was in crisis. She had a severe mental illness since when she was a young lady. But she lived with it for many years. But she thought that these people that had murdered her relatives, the Nazis, SS, she thought they were at her door. And so that's how we got started. A community member sat down with the local police department and said, how can we work together, community and police, to prevent this from ever happening again? Because people rely on the 911 call. When they need help, they don't know what to do. They call 911. And we didn't want them to not call because they thought the police would come and hurt their relatives, their loved ones. So we began to work with police and doing training. How do you de-escalate that crisis? Because they use a use of force continuum, where they take control of the situation. They physically control the person. But in this situation, it's about establishing a relationship, gaining trust, so that you can provide the help that the person in crisis needs. That's how we got started. So we've been working, training police, corrections, hospital staff, because we use force in hospitals too. Schools, educators, because we use force with children in schools who are in crisis. So that's what we do.
Sure. Mr. Anderson, could you tell us about the crisis intervention team concept then?
Right. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, Deputy Chief Greg Hessness, Minneapolis Police Department, met with this little group, and he suggested we bring in the crisis intervention team model. This is many years ago when it was just, it had been developed in Memphis in 1988, but Minneapolis Police was the first department in Minnesota to bring that model in response to Barbara's death and the killing of other people in crisis that summer by Minneapolis Police. And what crisis intervention team is, it's 3 partners in an ongoing collaborative process. Your first responder, because that's who we send. They don't go on their own. We call them, they're sent. Even though they don't have training in mental health, They don't have training in de-escalation. That's who we send. That's the one partner. The other partner is the mental health people, because they can provide us the support, the treatment, the care, and then the community advocacy. Very important partner. Those are the three partners that work together, improving the community response, so we don't hurt people, we don't re-traumatize people. We give people the help they need. That's the idea of CIT.
And then, so as far as bringing that CIT concept to this area, this region, I guess I should say, a part of that was indigenizing CIT, and that took place in 2015. Mr. Lapointe, could you talk about the indigenizing of the CIT concept then?
In February 2015, we conducted a telephone conversation with local leadership here regarding the death of a young man here in late December 2014. And we proposed to them a conversational process to engage not just the Native community, but the broader community, delegated leaders and then emerging leaders within the community, the broader community. And we brought them together on February 25th, 2015, here in Rapid City. We anticipated maybe 5 to 10 people for a host planning team. When we arrived, there was well over 40. And we were really totally surprised by that, but we really enjoyed that time. We came to do a 2-hour presentation on a conversational process, and we ended up staying for about 5 hours. And during that 5-hour process, we had a chance to go over through the 4-phase process of this conversational model. And we call it community conversations. And it's just based on the premise that everyone comes into a conversation with a positive mind, with gifts, with strengths, with solutions. It's a model that really moves away from finger pointing, from blame, from standing on a soapbox, from taking time away from others. But it's about a conversation process that engages small and large groups, where everyone has an opportunity to engage each other in the process. And the premise is that the community, particularly the community in this process, really has an opportunity to become engaged with the mental health sectors as well as the public safety sectors as well. Mental health and public safety sectors are essentially the systems. The community advocacy, which is the community, is also a vital player, and sometimes are often the player that changes systems. And in this case, it was a system that was being pointed out in the death of this young man in late December. And I think the following month was when also some young children from Pine Ridge were really assaulted by a beer spilling incident at the Civic Center. So that came into play as well. So we had an opportunity to return and do our first conversation back again in February, but it was a 4-phase process. So the community decided to engage the process 4 times. Our first process we called discovery, which basically meant that we would look at the strengths of our past and the strength of our present as well. And we felt that, and we still do that, everyone has a core process. Everybody has a core strength, but there's a positive core in all of us. And so, for example, in the Lakota tradition, there's a belief that we have a real strong relationship with the Creator. And nothing about that relationship is negative. It's just like having a relationship with your mother and your grandmother. No matter what you do, you could do no wrong.
Sure.
Whatever you do, your grandmother and your mother are going to embrace you, and they'll provide you the most positive direction that they could potentially give you.
Sure.
And that's the same basic concept with this conversational model, is that when everybody comes in the room, we lay a protocol out. We say, respect each other. Don't interrupt each other, or don't evaluate somebody's perspective, or don't self-evaluate your own.
Sure.
Because they may be coming in with a gift. Just listen. Use that gift of listening and sit down and listen to them.
Sure.
And that's what we ask during the process. And it began to work real well, largely because people here knew that there were some major problems that needed to be addressed. And when they found a level of conversation that was much higher than the lower level of conversation that's really been typical of this community, they knew that there was a model available to them that provided a high quality conversational process.
So this concept then really took it from that street level conversation that happens behind closed doors or oftentimes in the public eye, but really bringing it to a facilitated, organized conversation where there's kind of equal footing at the table between community members then. Let's talk a little bit more about that when we get back from the break, sir. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Native American children make up 20% of our school system in Rapid City. Rural America Initiatives, we have a capital campaign going on to build a first-class structure for these children. They've survived for 25 years in modular structures. It's time to bring them together to see this become a dream for these children come true.
Please consider donating to Rural American Initiatives and all they have to offer, from Head Start to high school, in empowering American Indian youth in succeeding in their goals.
You can't predict life's ups and downs. You just give it all you've got to stay on top. But it's easier with a partner like Security First Bank. Since 1898, we've been riding with you through the country's biggest ups and downs. And this is where we'll stay. Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on. Member FDIC.
You know, it's really busy in the coffee house, not just in the morning, but all day long. And it's really important that we serve our customers hot coffee that's ready for them when they're ready for it.
We get that, Michelle. And our team at Black Hills Energy will make sure you have the electricity you need to keep that Java nice and hot. Speaking of hot Java, how about a cup for the road? Black Hills Energy. Life sponsored by Energy.
It's really difficult in any medical clinic when we see patients injured in car wrecks who cannot afford the medical treatment that they need. So many of them had an insurance claim that they settled on their own without taking this into consideration. Of course, the insurance company won't open their claim after it's been settled, so they cannot get the medical care necessary to recover from their injuries. Before settling a claim, it would be wise to contact the insurance claim experts at Moore Faust Injury Law Group.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I'm your host, Richie Richards. Once again, our guests tonight are from the Barbara Schneider Foundation in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mr. Mark Anderson and Mr. LeMoine Lapointe. Once again, thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Lapointe, we were talking about the four, phases, and you had talked about discovery. Could you go over those other three components then?
The second phase, we call it dream. And that is what I would say is one of the most important segments of the conversation process. And why we refer to it as indigenizing crisis intervention teams in Indian country is because that dream segment is really vital to who we are, not just as human beings, but particularly who we are as Lakota people. Our people often look to the future consistently. Our 7 primary ceremonies within our Lakota culture are all future-oriented. Sure, we look back in the future, we appreciate everything that happened to us, all the gifts that were given to us, the strength that became part of who we were as a community and as individuals. But there was also that segment of this life process that relied on looking upstream and looking at the way life could be tomorrow. So we wanted to assure that there was also not just improvement in their lives, but transformation. And so the dream process and the conversational process was to look at how can we improve our community, but moreover, how can we transform our community of Rapid City to a community that looks unlike the way it looks like now. We wanted to live in a community in the future where world peace was a vital segment of who we are and who we represent. Rather than asking in this dream process, how could Rapid City be a more peaceful place, we asked, how could Rapid City be the epicenter of peace in the world? So it was really a broad-based, inquiry-based approach. So we were always looking in the future as we would in the Lakota culture and making it consistent with who we are. Therefore, that became indigenizing our process of looking forward. And it's a way that we've kind of neglected. All of our communities have neglected looking forward. We started looking in the past and present, and we just completely neglected our birthright, which was to look ahead to the time when we become elders and hopefully when we become wise.
Sure.
So that segment I always deem to be the most important.
Mm-hmm. And then for the third?
The third segment is called design. It's taken the first segment, which is discovery, and the second segment, which is dream, taking those values and visions from those two preceding conversations and putting form to them. See, it's very difficult to put form to values and visions. So what we did was we took a look at them, and in that process, we started developing what we call provocative propositions. So we took all the list of our strengths, all the list of our gifts, all the protective factors, all the positive elements of who we are as people. And we went and we said, which one of these are preferences? Which one's the top? Which one's the second? Which one's the third? And we went through a whole variety of, I think we came out with eventually over 12 of them. Locally, the community decided to go with the first 5. And some of those 5 were, they varied in length. It depended on the commitment of the people involved. Some would say, well, I'd like to go and be a part of this design segment for 6 months. Some said a year, some said 5 years, some said I could do it for the rest of my life. So that's how the designs came out, and you know, like one of them is the Chesapa Otipi. That became what we call our community innovation team. It came out of the preference. So the Chesapa Otipi preference became the community innovation team that would one day develop a really dynamic and vibrant Lakota Indian Center here that would attract people from all over the world who would really regard highly peace in their lives.
And then for the fourth and final?
The fourth and final conversation we call delivery. It's to really start implementing what it is that we design, because what we design now is packaged differently. Some of those packages were small, some were medium, some were real large packages. And some of them, they varied in length. But the idea was to implement and say, where are we going to deliver this package to? Who's going to be involved in the delivery of that package? What's going to be inside of that package? What's going to be the impact when somebody opens up this beautiful package with this gift inside? And that's basically our delivery, is to carry out, to implement all the our values and visions that became formidable, that became a form, and then now where we're going to deliver it.
Sure, sure. And so, Mr. Anderson, could you talk a little bit more and kind of extend on the community innovation team's concept then, kind of as it affects other areas, I guess?
Yeah, you know, I would start by going back to the beginning where we talked about that crisis moment for that individual. What de-escalation is about, listening to that person in crisis, helping them discover their own strength, helping them see their own way forward, either in that crisis moment or over a long period of time in conversation. Same thing occurs with community, listening to the community. What is the community? Where do they want to go? What do they want to? Where do they want to be in the future? And so these design decisions that are made by different individuals, preferences they have, then are formed around community innovation teams. So there's a team of people that works on a particular community innovation.
Sure.
So one of those is Hapotipi. Others are on healing and transformation, maybe education, curriculum development. There's a whole variety that here in Rapid City have been developed. But that's the idea of a community innovation team, not just improving on the existing system, existing reality, but how do we transform what we have today into that future we all really want.
Sure. And so happening this weekend here in Rapid City at the Rapid City Civic Center is the Community Innovation Team Summit. So when we get back after this break, let's talk a little bit about what's happening this weekend at the Rapid City Civic Center with the Community Innovation Team Summit. So we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Our future is our children. Their hope is you. Hi, Jeff Bridges here. Help our children grow strong for the next 7 generations. 20% of Rapid City school children are Native American. Many come from difficult situations, experiencing hopelessness and despair. Rural America Initiatives brings hope and opportunity, one dream at a time, one child at a time, one family at a time. Please, make a tax-deductible contribution. Be a part of the dream.
Native Sun News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Sun News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Sun News covers the other side of the story.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But I don't wanna get on. But if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guest tonight is Mr. Mark Anderson and Mr. LeMoine Lapointe. So thank you both again for being here.
Thank you.
Very appreciative of the information and the work you're doing for us in Rapid City. So with the event that's happening this weekend, could you give us a little bit of details of what's happening here?
Well, yesterday, Friday, we had, in the evening, we had our social gathering. And it just enables our people that are coming to get together with people they don't ordinarily talk with or have never met. So we have people coming from community conversation locations like Omaha, Fargo, Pine Ridge, Rose, but other areas like that where community conversations are being held. And we want these individuals to really come together and engage one another on an intimate level. And that's one of the primary premise of community conversations is to get to know each other so that that innate goodness that all of us have becomes part of the shining light that really inspires a community conversation to go forward. And we want that to really come out in our future summits. But last night for our social gathering, that's primarily why we came together.
So it would be a matter of these different cities with the community conversations coming together and just kind of sharing what works, what doesn't work, what's kind of the outlook for the future then? Is that what took place?
I think what really stands out is that people really love to talk about what they want to see in the future. We've known the challenges that have existed in the past. We know what's currently our present challenge. But a bigger challenge is to get together once again to try to determine how effectively and dynamically we could think upstream. Because we've neglected that part of our lives so often is to think upstream, and the social gatherings really are great for that.
Sure. And so, Mr. Anderson, could you talk about, I guess, when you heard or got word of the the young Native American man that was killed out in Lakota Homes and the beer spilling incident that took place at the Rapid City Civic Center. When you heard that, and being the executive director of Barbara Schneider Foundation, what was your response to that? How did you decide to bring the program here to Rapid City?
Yeah, when I heard about the tragedy here, it took me back to that moment when Barbara died 17 years ago. It's been 17 years now. Police going into a home with a crisis occurring and then winding up using deadly force. And how do we respond to that? How do we respond to that in a way that has not become just an argument and a debate and finger pointing and blaming, but how do we respond to it in a way that is healing for people who've been injured by this tragedy that's occurred? And how do we respond in a way where we look forward and we, as LeMoine's been saying, we transform our future so that we have that beautiful future that we all want. We don't have to live with this current situation. We came out after that, and then after we decided to come out, then there was the beer incident, and that people here know. I mean, that was really upsetting for people, and but I saw opportunity when I heard about that, because when we went to Omaha, it was around a tragedy. Went to Fargo, it was around a tragedy, But how do we respond to tragedy in a way that lifts people up, that lifts the community up, that helps the community provide that leadership for our elected officials and our business community? The community has that insight, has that positive core. How do we help them play that role? So that's what we've been trying to do here.
Not only that, but I believe that the work that you have brought to the community also prevented further tragedies. It took that racial tension and kind of nullified it in the community. I mean, I've been here during that period, and to feel Rapid City respond to it in that high level of tension that was happening in our community, and how the community conversations really brought it down to a level of, let's talk about this, let's come together, let's find solutions. So I definitely appreciate the work that you're doing, sir. I appreciate you being on our show tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Lapointe, I appreciate you being here as well, sir. That's going to conclude our show. I thank you both for the conversation tonight. I want to thank our producers, our sponsors. I want to thank Prairie Edge for hosting our show tonight, and I want to thank you for making Oyate Today a part of your night.
You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Skull Construction.
Yo, hop on.